Point in time, I'll hand it over to you, County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. The past several Employee of the Month awards have highlighted excellent service during COVID-19, as well as in general, but we've had a way of focusing in on the roles that these individuals have played in COVID-19, and this individual is no exception. She and her department have performed so well throughout the pandemic, and we're very grateful for that service. And I would like to turn it over to DSS Deputy Commissioner Nina Mastriani to introduce our Employee of the Month recipient and to fill us a little bit more in on the details. If you'd like to come up to the podium, Nina.
Here? Okay. Good morning. Amy has truly demonstrated her sincere commitment to the residents and staff at Countryside Adult Home. Throughout the pandemic, Amy prioritized the health and safety of the residents and staff while promptly implementing the Department of Health directives. Amy works tirelessly around the clock, often on personal and family time, and does it without complaint. She shows compassion for the residents and their families. Because of her efforts, we are proudly able to say that the residents remain COVID-free. Amy, you are an exemplary employee, and we are very thankful for all you do and have done for Countryside Adult Home. Thank you and congratulations.
Okay, I don't want to get too close to it. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Amy McBurn, Director of Countryside Adult Home, our April Employee of the Month. Congratulations.
At this point in time, it's very exciting for us to both welcome Dr. Duffy, and as sponsors of our community college, SUNY Adirondack has continued to be a valuable asset to our community and one that we're very grateful for all of our relationships with them and for all that they do for our community, but also for the opportunity to partner and work with some of their amazing interns as well. In 2015, we established the SUNY Adirondack Certificate of Excellence Award. We do this in collaboration with Washington County every year. This award is given annually to an outstanding SUNY Adirondack graduate. Due to COVID, unfortunately, we're just recognizing our two 2020 graduates. Formal recognition is typically made during our commencement ceremonies, and we also ask our graduates to come in and be recognized by our board at our annual June meeting. Unfortunately, once again, we were not able to have that evening meeting, but today we've decided to recognize both of those 2020 graduates while it's belated with a very sincere congratulations for your hard work. As a reminder of the types of requirements and expectations we have for this particular award, we look for individuals that have overcome significant obstacles in the course of pursuing their education, demonstrates academic achievement, exhibits motivation, tenacity, and enthusiasm, and is a Warren County resident. At this point in time, I would ask that Supervisor Claudia Bramer, who is chair of our Higher Education Committee, please remotely present and provide a brief background on why these two individuals are so deserving, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Sieber. I'm honored to present the awards today, and if you'll just bear with me for a few minutes, I do want to give their background because it's important to recognize who they are and where they're coming from. I don't believe I see either of our students on the Zoom, but we'll be sure to get to them the actual certificates that we have. And I want to thank Supervisor Wild for having done the video last year during the commencement ceremony that did take place in 2020. So the two students are Tina Nguyen and Matthew Thung. Tina graduated from the SUNY Adirondack Nursing Program. Tina overcame a myriad of obstacles to obtain her degree. There were many times when the combination of work and school seemed like it might be too much, but she never gave up. Tina was raised in Syracuse, New York, as one of 8 children, and the second eldest child. She played a big role in helping to raise her younger siblings. Tina's parents are both refugees from Vietnam who met here in the United States, and English is Tina's second language. While obtaining her nursing degree, Tina made a big contribution to our community through her health care work. She obtained a peer support position at the Rose House, which is a mental health support in Warren and Washington County, and she worked at Adirondack Urgent Care as a patient care technician. She also worked as a CNA at Slate Valley Center in Granville. Tina took these jobs very seriously and has been a dedicated employee to her healthcare work as she was to her studies as a student at SUNY Adirondack. There were occasions when this student faltered, times when she told SUNY Adirondack staff that she had lost her confidence, but by sheer force of will, dedication, and by using every resource available to her, Tina made it through to graduation. Congratulations, Tina. Matthew Thung graduated with a degree in information technology and information security. He grew up in Glens Falls and is the son of Chinese immigrant and a developmentally disabled mother. While growing up, money was always tight, and between his father's work at Flower Drum Song and Social Security income from his mother, there was just enough to make ends meet. Matt started his preparation for post-secondary education by joining the SUNY Adirondack Upward Bound program when he was in 9th grade. Through his hard work, Matt was an honor roll student and National Honor Society member when he graduated from Glens Falls High School in 2018. Matt had many options for post-secondary education, but he ultimately chose SUNY Adirondack due to the financial affordability and proximity to home. During his time at SUNY Adirondack, Matt participated in Finish in 2 initiative, had a work-study position in the Upward Bound office, kept his part-time job at Hannaford, and tutored for the Accessibilities office, all while maintaining a 3.8 GPA. Through this uncertain time, Matt has been able to maintain his high academic achievement while serving our community as an essential worker, working 24-plus hours a week, and made it through to graduation. Congratulations, Matthew, and thank you for your service. I'm going to put on my screen, I don't know if you guys here in the room hear their certificates. Thank you, Chairwoman, that's my presentation.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer.
And I'll thank Dr. Duffy for being here this morning, and we will be bringing through to committee the candidates for our recipient for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 public hearings this morning. We'll open our first public hearing, and with each one, we'll close them after we've heard from any public comment. So at this point in time, I'd like to declare the public hearing open on proposed local law number 3 of 2021. This is entitled Dispensing with the Requirements under the New York State General Municipal Law, Section 352, and authorizing a lease of airport real property. Any requests have been made to the clerk of the board regarding the notice of public hearing out loud, and the privilege of the floor will be extended to anyone who wishes to be heard on this matter. Ms. Allen?
Warren County will hold a public hearing on April 16, 2021 at 10 a.m. at the County Municipal Center located at 1340 State Route 9, Queensbury, New York, for the purpose of hearing public comments on proposed local law number 3 of 2021 entitled Dispensing with the Requirements under New York General Municipal Law, Section 352, and authorizing a lease of airport real property. At this time, the Warren County Municipal Center is closed to the public. Therefore, this public hearing will be held via Zoom video conference. Anyone wishing to comment must contact the clerk of the Board of Supervisors to obtain an invitation to this virtual meeting. Comments can also be submitted in writing to Amanda Allen, clerk of the Board of Supervisors, 1340 State Route 9, Lake George, New York, 12845, or by email, no later than April 15, 2021. If special accommodations are needed for persons with disabilities, those with hearing impairments, or those in need of translation from English Those individuals should contact the Warren County Clerk of the Board of Supervisors by phone between 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. during regular business days or by email at least 7 days in advance of the public hearing to allow necessary arrangements. We have not received any written comments or any requests for special accommodations.
Thank you. At this point in time, we are very excited to be able to open our county buildings. On Monday, we opened back up to the public, and I just wanted to ask if there were any members of the public here today wishing to speak, or any comments that you've been made aware of as well. Don Lehman.
Good morning. I did get one email comment from Queensbury resident Travis Whitehead. Would you like me to read that now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
From Travis Whitehead, I believe that leasing the otherwise unused lands at the airport for solar arrays is an example of the kind of creative stewardship of public lands that we would hope to see from this board. While the revenue from these leases can only be used to defray airport costs, that is as good as any other use for that revenue. It strengthens the continued operation of that fine facility by reducing the financial burden on the county. I will just note that there are lands immediately east of these leases that are also either assigned to the airport or owned outright by the county, the lots near the National Guard facility, and I would hope that you are looking into doing more of the same with these lands as well. Signed, Travis Whitehead, Queensbury.
Thank you. Hearing no
As of
other-
right now, we have no comment on YouTube on this public hearing.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to close then the public hearing regarding local law number 3 of 2021. Our next public hearing today is on the possible solar lease at the Warren County Floyd Bennett Memorial Airport. At this point in time, I would request that the clerk of the board read the proper notice of public hearing.
Warren County will hold a public hearing on April 16, 2021 at 10 a.m. at the County Municipal Center located at 1340 State Route 9, Queensbury, New York, for the purpose of hearing public comments on a proposed solar land lease at the Warren County Airport. At this time, the Warren County Municipal Center is closed to the public, therefore this public hearing will be held via Zoom video conference. Anyone wishing to comment must contact the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors to obtain an invitation to this virtual meeting. Comments can also be submitted in writing to Amanda Allen, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors, 1340 State Route 9, Lake George, New York, 12845, or by email no later than April 15, 2021. If special accommodations are needed for persons with disabilities, those with hearing impairments, or those in need of translation from English, those individuals should contact the Warren County Clerk of the Board of Supervisors by phone between 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. during regular business days or by email, at least 7 days in advance of the public hearing to allow for necessary arrangements. I don't have any written comments or any requests for accommodations.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public here that wish to be heard regarding this public hearing? Mr. Lehman, have you received any comment regarding this one?
Just the one that I read earlier from Mr. Whitehead. I apparently jumped the gun and read that the wrong one, but that was the only airport one we have.
That's okay. We'll apply it to this hearing. Thank you. Hearing none, we'll call that public hearing closed. Our third public hearing for today is on the possible submission of one or more community development block grants. Those applications are for the year 2020 and funds available through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, the CARES Act. At this point in time, we'll ask Ms. Allen to read that information.
Warren County will hold a public hearing on April 16, 2021 at 10 a.m. at the County Municipal Center located at 1340 State Route 9, Queensbury, New York, for the purpose of hearing public comments on community needs for Warren County and to discuss the possible submission of one or more community development block grant applications for the 2020 program year. The CDBG program is administered by the New York State Office of Community Renewal and will make available to eligible local governments up to $1 million for the 2020 program year for housing, economic development, public facilities, public infrastructure, and planning activities, with the principal purpose of benefiting low and moderate income persons. The hearing will provide further information about CDBG program and will allow the citizen participation in the development of any proposed grant applications and/or to provide technical assistance to develop alternate proposals. Comments on the CDBG program or proposed projects will be received at this time. The hearing is being conducted pursuant to Section 570.486, Subpart 1, of the CFR and in compliance with the requirements of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. At this time, the Warren County Municipal Center is closed to the public, therefore this public hearing will be held via Zoom video conference. Anyone wishing to comment must contact the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors to obtain an invitation to this virtual meeting. Comments can also be submitted in writing to Amanda Allen, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors, 1340 State Route 9, Lake George, New York, 12845, or by email no later than April 15, 2021. If special accommodations are needed for persons with disabilities, those with hearing impairments, or those in need of translation from English, those individuals should contact the Warren County Clerk of the Board of Supervisors by phone between 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. during regular business days or by email at least 7 business days in advance of the public hearing to allow for necessary arrangements. That's the end of the notice. Wayne Lamoth does have something he needs to go over for this.
Thank you. Mr. Lamont?
Good morning. Part of the required information for the public hearing regards the NOFA that was sent out by the state. Under this funding round, there are 5 areas that would be supported as they relate to COVID-19 issues. Under that program, we are looking at submitting an application under improving air quality in public space, public facilities, specifically countryside adult home. We are looking at submitting an application in the neighborhood of $622,000 for replacement of the HVAC system in that facility to meet the MERV 13 CDC requirements, recommendations. That figure is actually at this point a back of the napkin number. I worked with Kevin Hajos to get a preliminary engineering report from Clark Patterson that would further refine that number, and that is required part of the submittals. The other thing I need to bring up is Resolution 28 of this year authorized a submission for CDBG funds for Countryside specifically. That activity is replacement of the roof. It is no way related to what we're proposing here. There is no duplication of funding requests. So that is a certification we have to provide, and that need to be part of the public hearing. I will say that this office submitted a preliminary application to the state on the 2nd of April. On the 5th of April, the state requested a conference call. On the 6th of April, Nina and I attended that conference call. The state was very receptive, and on the 7th of April, they sent us an email with an invitation to submit a full application. So it is the intention to submit a full application for HVAC improvements to meet MERV 13 requirements at Countryside Adult Home. And that's all the information I am required to cover as part of this public hearing.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard regarding this public hearing? Mr. Lehman, have you been contacted with any comments?
There is no public comment on this public hearing at this point.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'll call that public hearing closed. And we'll move on to committee reports. And I'd like to start off by saying we have had, in terms of my committee report as chair of the board, we've had a very busy month since we met last. And just as an overall highlight, instead of reading to you all of the dates and the meetings and the communications that I've had, and I will of course file a report with our clerk of the board, I wanted to highlight a few things, a few notable things that have taken place this month. And I think it's appropriate for us to first start with our memorial ceremony that we had on Tuesday honoring public health. Thank you very much for all of you that came and thanked and supported our public health department and all of our volunteers and our employees. There's a beautiful memorial tree now planted out front, which sadly will continue to honor and respect and provide condolences to those we've lost and continue to lose. National Public Health Week took place from April 5th to the 11th, and each day during that week, there was a different emphasis on the hard work that our public health partners have provided. From rebuilding to advancing racial equity to strengthening communities, galvanizing climate justice, building COVID-19 resilience, uplifting mental health and wellness, and evaluating the essential and healthcare workforce. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors this month, we sent out nearly 200 letters to both every employee here in public health in Warren County, and we also recognized all of the volunteers that have worked so hard in Warren County in terms of our pandemic rollout, but also being able to assist in COVID testing. We also want to take an opportunity to acknowledge our partners with the state. Exit 19, our mass vaccination center, is right up the road, and we know that this combined effort has resulted in over 45% of our residents being vaccinated, but also today has been 1 month since that vaccination center has opened, and last week on Friday we had about 16,000 people that have been vaccinated through the Exit 19 partnership with the state. We'd like to officially thank Sam Parker, who is our liaison with the governor's office, and also Chris Collins, who was instrumental in making sure that our mass vaccination center is in an accessible location. We look forward to meeting with them on Tuesday to present a certificate of appreciation. And also, we wrote a letter to all of the employees and volunteers at the state level as well that are here in Warren County providing such an amazing service to our residents as well. In addition, this week, we've also had an opportunity to recognize our National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. This happens during the second week of April. The telecommunications personnel and public safety in our community here, we've honored them both with sending letters to every single one of our hardworking telecommunications officers with the Sheriff's Office. But I also had an opportunity this week to tour and learn more about our dispatch center with Assemblyman Simpson and taking a very hard look at what we can do to continue to support our communications center. And I am happy to hear that Supervisor Diamond, as chair of that committee, will be taking some time to also expand upon what we learned this week. But this was a week-long event to celebrate and thank those who dedicate their lives to serving the public. So thank you very much for your hard work and dedication. In addition to attending all of our committee meetings, there were various other committee meetings with partners in our community. I also had the privilege of being able to speak with our Women's Advisory Council with our Adirondack Chamber of Commerce, and I certainly appreciate the invitation there and the dialogue we had this week, and for Supervisor Driscoll attending as well to provide that type of insight to our business partners and our women in business. On March 25th, we had our inter-county meeting. We talked at great lengths about a resolution that will come before you. Supervisor Beatty will present that in our government operations meeting this month regarding access to broadband. And we want to thank Chairman Bill Farber for his hard work, along with NISAC, in bringing that forward. So thank you to all our inter-county members for that support and dialogue as well that's taken place over the last several months for that resolution. In addition to our thank you to our public health, there were several supervisors that participated that were here last week in a quick video over to public health, and we've been able to post that and share that. And I really want to thank you for that fun opportunity to be able to recognize many of our members here in public health with a personal video thank you from some supervisors. In addition, we've talked all things LDC, I feel like, since January 8th, but we've made significant headway with lots of help, working with Jim Siplon and all of our LDC members of directors on that board, and appreciate everyone's, we've all been reading quite a bit of information on that to get up to speed, and to continue the hard work and assistance to our community. National Crime Victims' Rights Week begins on Sunday. You've all received some information about attending a brick walkway ceremony, a very small one out front this year, which is a little different than what we've done in the past, but we're certainly grateful for District Attorney Jason Carasone, who's continuing this tradition. I just want to highlight that this week, what we hope to do is to continue to honor those who work in criminal justice and provide services to a crime victim, but National Crime Victims' Rights Week also provides an opportunity to recommit to ensuring that accessible, appropriate, and trauma-informed services are offered to all crime victims. So this board will be proclaiming that the week of April 18th to the 24th will be Crime Victims' Rights Week. You have 6 or 7 other proclamations that are equally important in your packet, and our public information officer will be reaching out to those of you on the appropriate committees as we continue to do outreach on social media and on our website to highlight these hardworking organizations and the different awareness efforts that have taken place during this month and into next month. Lastly, I'd like to congratulate Amanda Allen. Amanda has been spending the last 3 months working very hard with the National Association of Counties in their High Performance Leadership Academy. Yesterday, she graduated that academy, and we're very proud to have a graduate at that national level to continue to act as a role model and set examples for us on exactly what leadership should look like, and to bring to the board many ideas of how we can continue to work hard to lead not only our community, but really, this was quite an accomplishment, and I wanted to congratulate her on behalf of the board here today on that. With that being said, like I said, I'll save you from the day-by-day report, and I'll follow that with Amanda. And at this point in time, we have some very hard-working committee chairs, and I'd like to go through and recognize their efforts. Today is day 96, so we've had about 3 months in our new committee structure, and I'm very appreciative of all of your hard work. Supervisor Beatty, if you'd like to start with a finance report.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. Would be glad to. I always start off the Finance Committee report with Mr. Swan, giving him the opportunity to make any comments from the Treasury Department. So without objection, I'd like to offer that up to Mr. Swan.
Good morning, everybody. I'm from a little different spot today. No comments, please. Just an update on some things that are going on in the Treasurer's office. We're in the process of finishing up the closing of our books for 2020. We will have that done next week, and we'll meet our filing deadline with the state, as we have every year since I've been here. And as we file that, we will be providing every member of this board with a copy of that report so that you know where we are. And once you get that, if you have any questions, please call me. Everybody knows that, I hope, by now. In conjunction with closing of the books, we're also starting to look at anything that may qualify for the stimulus reimbursements from the federal government as far as lost revenues or anything else. And we're trying to get those figures under control so that we can, once we establish what we can actually use the stimulus money for, we will have an idea of where we need to spend it. And we don't have the complete guidelines with that yet. And I understand that Chairwoman Sieber is asked to have a committee started to look into how we can spend that money. So we're trying to get ready for that. Occupancy tax, we've collected about 4.2 million, and we're down 14% from the previous year. This week I met with Supervisor Garrity, Ryan Moore, and Ryan Dickey to discuss Airbnb and internet providers as far as short-term rentals. We've come to some conclusions, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but at the May meeting, I think we're going to be making a presentation to the Occupancy Tax Committee as to exactly where we are with that. And the stimulus money, as far as the occupancy tax, next week we will be mailing out from my office about 450 letters to short-term rental properties that are not currently registered with Warren County to collect occupancy tax that we know of out there. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be popping with a lot of that stuff. Any questions, anything I can answer with anybody?
Supervisor Leggett.
Can you explain to us the bump up on the sales tax back to the county for March? It was a
not a clue. I have no idea. All that was explained to me was that they made an adjustment. We've been checking into it. I've seen the chatter from all the other county treasurers in the state, and it's all over the board. We're not really sure why, so I can't. I wish I could give you a direct answer, but they don't give us anything much to go on.
Any other questions?
Okay, seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swan. Insightful as usual. We'll continue on with the Finance Committee, which met, and we have a number of requests to this board, starting with 112 in your packet, 113, and 144 to 155. So that's a number of resolutions in your packet. 112 and 113 is fairly self-explanatory, making supplemental appropriations is 12, and 13 is amending the Warren County budget for 2021 for various departments within Warren County. 144 is, as we open up is from Buildings and Grounds, and Kevin Hajos is here, so if there's any, it's authorizing county treasurer to close capital projects. Fairly self-explanatory. If anybody has a question, Kevin's right here today, you can ask him. 145 will be also a roll call vote. It's on the Board of Elections, and that's authorizing the annual appropriation of funds from the election equipment reserve to the Board of Elections budget to fund the lease of the Dominion voting machines and amending Warren County budget for 2021. If anybody has a question on that, Billy and Beth both went into detail last time about that in the committee and so forth, but if anybody has any questions, we can ring them up. We've maxed out the Zoom capacity, but we can ring them up, Amanda told me. Does anyone have any questions there? Okay, seeing none, I'll move right along. 146 is from our county administrator, actually 146 and 147. It's amending, it's adopting amended Warren County travel, education, and vehicle use policy. And 147 is adopting revised credit card policy for Warren County. Ryan, did you want to make any comments, or
I'll take any questions if anybody has them.
anybody have any questions on that?
Don't see any.
Seeing none, we'll move right along. 148 is from DPW. That'll also be a roll call vote. It's increasing the capital project number H351 and CR44 over Hudson River Bridge painting project, authorizing the transfer of funds and amending our county budget for 2021. Any questions? Kevin's right here, Kevin Hajos. Seeing none, we'll move along. 149 will also be a roll call vote, establishing a repair reserve fund, DM.868.00 reserve, mobile brine unit to finance repairs to the mobile brine unit, and authorizing appropriation of funds and amending Warren County budget for 2021. That's been very successful, correct, Kevin? That's been a huge success. You've been spearheading that even on a statewide level, and I know I speak probably for every supervisor. Thank you very much. That's been a huge plus for this county. In my opinion, I think everybody else would concur. 150, Finance, also Kevin, establishing 2021 road fund project and amending Warren County budget for 2021. Any questions there? Seeing none, moving right along. 151, also from DPW, authorizing the appropriation of funds for the county road project fund surplus to the Department of Public Works budget and amending the county budget. No questions for Kevin, okay. 152 is employment and training administrator. That'll be Liza. Authorizing agreement with the Greater Glens Falls Transit and the allocation of funds to expand the CDPHP cycle bike share program to Warren County as requested by the Employment and Training Administration. I can tell you that, that's also a joint project with the private sector, and that the private sector has really been stepping up in funding. And we authorized, I believe, last month, up to $10,000 to help out. And Amanda told me this morning that the funds coming in from the private sector are very, very strong. So it's highly likely that the county will not have to put in the full 10,000, far, far from it, but that's not finalized yet. So it looks like the public sector again has stepped up and on a good project. 153 is also from the 152, I mentioned that, okay. 153, the Finance Information Technology, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the Computer Reserve Fund to the various departmental budgets and amending Warren County budget. Fairly self-explanatory. Okay. And then we have two last ones, 154 and 155. That's from environmental concerns, real property taxes. I don't know if Lexi is on the call or not. 154 is authorizing the appropriation of additional funds from the Environmental Testing Reserve Fund to the Real Property Tax Services budget to pay Bronze Contracting LLC for the removal of contaminated snow from the town of Queensbury, and then they put down the map location. That would need to amend the Warren County budget. Is there any questions on that? Seeing none. 155, it's also from Real Property Tax Services, accepting proposal and authorizing agreement with Auctions International for professional services to conduct land auction. Any questions? Seeing none? Okay. That would conclude the finance meeting. Are there any questions? Okay. I'm moving right along to government ops. You've got 4 resolutions in your packets, 124, 125, 126, and 127. Government ops met, and you have 124 is authorizing agreement with Needham Risk Management Resource Group, LLC, to produce a computer-based training video for the training of Board of Election Inspectors. Any questions? We can ring up Bill and Beth if we have any. We covered it though in the meeting fairly thoroughly. Okay, seeing that, we'll move right along. 125, government ops and advocacy, the county clerk, that would be Pam Vogel, accepting proposal and authorizing agreement with Info Quick Solutions, Inc. for electronic document management and archival records management system for the Warren County Clerk's Office. We can ring up Pam if anyone has any questions. She did go into pretty much detail in our meeting. Seeing none, we'll go right along. 126, also government ops and advocacy, county clerk, commemorating the 100th anniversary of the New York State Association of County Clerks and the 100th anniversary of DMV operations in Warren County. And Pam did say that she wasn't around when that started, and I appreciate that comment. Does anyone have any questions about the 100th anniversary? Seeing none. Finally, 127, this is purchasing, that would be Julie Butler, adopting the 2021 purchasing policy for Warren County. That was sent out to everyone. Does anyone have any questions? Julie did a phenomenal job on that, tightening it up even further. And a lot of hard work, and I appreciate, I'm sure everyone in this room appreciates your hard work on that too. Any questions? Okay. None. All right. Madam Chairwoman, I got through it as quickly as possible, and
Thank you, Supervisor.
roll tide.
Our executive committee did not meet this month. I appreciate all the efficiencies, and we did not have to use that catch-all committee. Supervisor Bramer for Personnel, Administration, and Higher Education.
Thank you, Chairwoman Sieber. We met on April 1st, and there are a few resolutions. I'll be a little more succinct than Supervisor Beatty. You can read them in your packet 140 through 143.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'm sure you can ask them during discussion time, and we will be meeting again on April 29th for litigation update as normal, as well as starting to look at the ethics policy, updating that as needed, and also we'll be discussing the hiring process for the county attorney position. So that's it. See you at our committee meeting, and as always, thank you to our department heads and all of the employees here for all the great work you've been doing. Thank you, Chairwoman Sieber. That's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. Next, Supervisor Conover, Public Works.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Public Works Committee met on March 23rd. Represented in your packet is Resolution 137, which is an agreement with Revolution Rail for use of county-owned railroad tracks to include Hadley and Luzerne Thurman stations. Mr. Hajos is here to answer any questions that you might have regarding that resolution. Basically, I think it's $500 per station. If they use both of them, it'd be an additional $1,000. I think it's a good use of that property. It's a one-year arrangement, and I would strongly recommend support of that resolution. I just quickly will note that Resolution 140 listed under personnel at the top of the page includes the creation and funding of the solid waste and recycling coordinator position in the Department of Public Works. We're very excited about that position and the kind of information and the kind of good solid recommendations for the future that we think we're going to be getting from the establishment of that position within the Department of Public Works. And all other matters dealing with Public Works were previously handled by Mr. Beatty under financial report. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover. Supervisor Diamond with Public Safety.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Public Safety Committee met this month. In front of you today is Resolutions 132 through 136 for your approval. Resolution 132 is appointing members of the Warren County EMS Advisory Board for the Office of Emergency Services. These are individuals that are being reappointed. Resolution 133 is similar. We're appointing members of the Warren County Fire Advisory Board for the Office of Emergency Services. Again, these are individuals that are being reappointed, no changes. Resolution 134 is approving the revised comprehensive emergency management plan for Warren County for the Office of Emergency Services. No major changes to this plan. It was just an update for personnel uses. Resolution 135 is authorizing agreement with Lexpol for subscription for online police and corrections training for the Warren County Sheriff's Department, not to exceed $11,257 for a term commencing April 1st, 2021, and terminating March 31st, 2022. Resolution 136 is authorizing an agreement with New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision to procure food products for the Warren County Correctional Facility. This is a 5-year contract. It's on a state contract, and it's awarded based on the lowest responsible bidder, so the cost is fixed at $126,114 per the calendar year. In speaking with the sheriff, they're very satisfied with the service that they're getting. The last item on the agenda today, or the last item I have today, is on April 19th, the Public Safety Committee will be meeting. At that point in time, one of the topics that we're going to discuss is Local Law 6 of 2014, entitled Warren County Ethics and Disclosure Law, and specifically we're going to discuss Section 6, titled Nepotism. I didn't have an opportunity to put that on the agenda, but I wanted to give my committee members advance notice that this discussion is going to take place at 9 a.m. on April 19th. So if you have any questions, my committee members, feel free to give me a call, or I'll call you over the weekend to discuss this in more detail. So that concludes my report for today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Diamond. Supervisor Dickinson, Environmental Concerns and Real Property Tax Services.
No report. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Dickinson. Supervisor Driscoll, Human Services.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and good morning, everyone. The Human Services Committee met on Monday, March 22nd. From that meeting comes one resolution, resolution number 130. It is simply appointing or reappointing 4 individuals to the Warren County Youth Board. The Human Services Committee will next meet this coming Monday, April 19th, at or about 11:30 a.m., and we'll be joined by our Employee of the Month, Amy McByrne, who will give a short presentation about some matters relating to the adult home. Thank you.
Thank you Supervisor Driscoll. Supervisor Frazier for Health Services.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Health Services met on March the 22nd. We had reports from Public Health, Mental Health, and Office of the Aging. And so in front of you, as a result of those meetings, we have two resolutions. Resolution 128 from Office of Community Services, appointing members to the Warren County Community Services Board, and 129 from Office for the Aging, authorizing memorandum of understanding between Warren County Office for the Aging and Warren County Health Services to provide assistance in answering phones and registering seniors for COVID vaccine clinics. Our next meeting is on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Garrity, Tourism and Occupancy Tax Coordination.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. We have two resolutions, 138 and 139, were both vetted by committee, and I asked for approval of those. And just one other thing, what Mike was talking about, Oxy tax for short-term rentals. If you do get any questions in your communities about that, they are required to register with the Treasurer's Office and start paying their 4% directly to the Treasurer's Office. There seems to be a little bit of confusion, at least in my community, and just get that word out if you get any calls on in your own community about that. But we're working on that. We're working on a spending plan. I've had a couple calls about the spending plan. It's not finalized, but I would say that if I'm in any of my communities and somebody comes to me and wants to know if I can get Oxy tax this year, I would ask them to make out an application. We certainly will be talking about the spending plan in the future. But I would take an application, unless it's immediately. We should have an answer by June. Thank you.
Thank you Supervisor Garrity. Supervisor Frazier, as Vice Chair of the Economic and Growth Development Committee, on behalf of Supervisor Hogan today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Economic Growth and Development met on March the 23rd. We want to thank Brian Bear, Andrea Deepy, and Michael Biddle for taking the time to inform us on the economic impact of not-for-profits. You have two resolutions in front of you today. The first, Resolution 123, to authorize submission of a grant to CDBG to access CARES Act funding, was the subject of the public hearing today, and we hope you'll support this. The second, Resolution 152, coming through Finance, authorizes an allocation of up to $10,000 to support the bike share program, which they will begin in May. So far, we have secured enough private and public funding that it looks like the county will not be responsible for the full $10,000, and we will have an update from Liza at the April 20th committee meeting. Thank you for your support of this important transportation initiative. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Leggett with Criminal Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Criminal Justice met on March 22nd. There are 6 resolutions in front of you here, 117 to 122. 117 is to authorize continuation agreement with Legal Aid Society of New York in amount not to exceed $145,400 per year for family court conflict cases. Number 118 is to authorize new contract with Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York in amount not to exceed $54,514 for paralegal case management support services for indigent persons in the Warren County Family Court. 119 is to authorize new contract with Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York in amount not to exceed $45,000 for paralegal case management support services for indigent persons in Warren County Family Court. 120, to amend Resolution 494 of 2019, which authorized an agreement with a supervising attorney for the assigned counsel office to include language pertaining to reimbursement of expenses. 121, to amend the agreement with LexisNexis in the amount of $1,700 to allow for research use above and beyond the scope of the current contract, with additional costs to be covered by New York Office for Indigent Legal Services grant funds. And 122 is to authorize extension of agreement with New York State Defenders Association Incorporated in the amount of $5,500 for the use of public defense case management system software. Thank you.
Thank you Supervisor Leggett. Supervisor McGowan, County Facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. We had a really busy month there, especially with the county facilities and the airport. And I want to just really reach out and thank Kevin Hayjos and the team that worked so hard, which was Supervisor Leggett, Supervisor Stroud, and Supervisor Wild, that really took a lot of time out of their busy schedules to work with Kevin and to review all the contracts that came in for our solar farm out there at our airport. And, you know, it was a little difficult pulling that team together because no three could be on the same committee of anywhere. So it was, right from the beginning, it was a little troublesome. So I kind of just sat back and went under the leadership of Kevin because I would have rocked the boat on that with the numbers. So Kevin is here. Does anybody have any questions on, we have 114, which is the county facilities accepting the proposals for authorizing the land lease with Nexamp Solar for the Floyd Bennett Memorial Airport solar or other approved use of land lease at WC 44-20. So, any questions? Okay. And then 116, it's actually 115, sorry, that was 114. 115 is enacting the local law, number 3 of 2021, entitled Dispensing with the Requirements under the New York State General Municipal Law, Section 352, and authorizing a lease of airport real property. So we had to actually pick a company, and then we have to start on enacting this local law. So we will be doing that, and I believe that is in going to be, you know, all the notices and that going out. So do we have any questions on 115? Okay, and then we have 116, which you're probably all looking at, county facilities for social services. Well, you all know I'm a little crazy, so, but the real truth is here, Christian Hanchett came across a grant at the last minute, which is going to help out our countryside adult home. So Amy can really keep up with the wonderful care that she's giving all us. And as you all know, we are working on repairs up there. And he came across this grant for $226,000 and $226,400, right? That's what I wanted to say. And so it was kind of at the last minute. And unfortunately, the committee meetings had already taken place, so I adapted to pull that in with the facilities because of the fact that it is a building in the county that we own, and it kind of fell in place. So I talked it over with Supervisor Driscoll, and he was more than happy to say, take it over, Brad. I trust you. I believe that's what you said, wasn't it, Ben? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so anybody have any questions on 116? All right, well, that can do it on my report. I thank you all, and we'll be voting soon.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan. Supervisor Merlino, Park Operations and Management Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. We did meet on March 23rd. A lot of discussion at that meeting. The mayor advised us about 12 events that have been booked already for the festival space for this year. He also said that he looks like we're booked for June and September at the festival space. We have one resolution that came through that meeting, was 131 for a not-for-profit event there. Big discussion was ensued on it, and we decided that we're going to leave it at $500 for the day. And at our next meeting, which will be on the 20th at 10 o'clock of April, we had a small, quick meeting with the mayor, Kevin Gavity, and Kevin Hayjos, Kathy Munsell, just to go over some of the ideas that people would have, so I can bring to the next meeting to let the full board approve it. we have to come up with a final cost on the festival space. We've been bouncing this around for years and years. Every year we change it. And to be honest, when we looked at all the numbers of what it costs us and things to run that festival space, we have to set a price and stick to it, whether they're not-for-profit or prices for full events there, because there are expenses there, and we have to keep up with it. We're not there to make money. We hope to make a little bit to keep in reserve, but we have to stay stable with this for the next coming years. So we're going to have a proposal coming up next week. There's a meeting with the Ice Castle. People are coming up on the 26th. If we can land this thing, this is a December, January, and February event, 5 days a week. From what we've been told over the last year while talking to these people, it could be such a bonanza for our county, because it is for other states. They have 3 or 4 other places, and it'll be great for hotels and restaurants and business people, and collect sales tax, hot tax. So we'll bring you more on when we see that meeting, and what we're trying to come up with a number for them that we can give them from hot tax money. And we've heard a lot of different figures, so by next week we'll be able to tell you more on that. Okay? And that's about all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman.
Thank you, Supervisor Merlino. Supervisor Smith with Extension Service.
Thank you. I did hear from Amy Sabatis. First of all, I want to apologize for not being there today. I had hoped to be there and actually see you all in person. I did see a few of you on Tuesday, but I have a meeting immediately following this. I'm trying to think, how can I fly from Queensbury back up here? So I had to change my plans. But anyway, I did hear from Amy Sabatis, and she had said that they had an absolute overwhelming response to the annual plant sale, and most of all the items are sold out. She also wanted me to announce that on Wednesday, May 5th, May 12th, and May 19th, at Wednesday, 6 p.m., they're going to have a New York State virtual 4-H forestry event. And this will be presented both for the beginner level and the advanced level. The beginner class is for youth 10 years and over who have little or no experience with tree identification, map, and compass, or learning about how to measure trees. And then the advanced class is for the youth 13 and over that have had a lot of experience. On May 18th and May 25th, the New York Logger training programs will be at the Fish Hatchery and at the fairgrounds. And on May 18th, it'll be timber measurements for harvesters taught by Rich McDermott, and that's from 8:30 to 4. And then on May 25th, there's going to be a mechanized harvesting safety course, which will be recognizing hazards and controlling them. And that'll be put on by W.J. Cox Insurance Company. That's also 8:30 to 4. Wild edibles. They're going to be offering a wild edible workshop again this year, which is very popular. And that's where participants learn how to identify, harvest, and prepare wild growing plants that can safely be used for food. And so that's a real popular topic. That will be free, and it's offered at 7 p.m. on June 8th, 15th, and 22nd. And for more information, you can just call the office at 623-3291. So that was the report that she had given to me, and I appreciated that follow-up. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Supervisor Smith. Supervisor Thomas with our Budget Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a report, but I'm anticipating the close of the year coming up here pretty soon, Mr. Treasurer, and we look forward to that. Hopefully it's better than we thought last year. I would like to mention that with the ANCA, the Adirondack North Country Association, their executive director, Kate Fish, has decided to retire after 12 years, and I would like to just recognize her and thank her for 12 years of work with ANCA. And that's it.
Thank you, Supervisor Thomas. At this point in time, I'd like to ask our County Administrator, Ryan Moore, for his report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For notable anniversaries today, with 35 years of county service, Brian Engel from the Sheriff's Department. With 30 years of county service, Wanda Olden from Countryside Adult Home. And with 20 years of service, Diane Caldwell from Public Health. Thanks to the three of these individuals for their dedication to the county and their long years of service. We appreciate it very much. At last month's board meeting, it was the same day as our mass vaccination site opened up. We've continued to do really well as a county since then. As of yesterday morning, we had 29,598 people that had received at least one dose. That's 46.1% of our population. And that compares to 39.6 statewide, so we're doing better than the statewide average. And also, as of yesterday morning, we had 23,209 individuals who live here who had been through a full vaccination series. That's 36.1% of our population, as opposed to 26.4, which is the statewide average. So we're almost ahead by 10 points there. It's fantastic. We're the 11th highest performing county in the state. Last month, I thought that we might close and hit Essex County sooner than it looks like we're going to. We are getting close. We're at 46.1 and they're at 46.3, so we still have some friendly competition going on there. Nassau County is also at 46.3, so those are the two that are closest to us at this point. On Tuesday, as the chair mentioned, we had the tree dedication ceremony. I'd like to thank Jim Liebram, Marin Alexander, and the Soil and Water Conservation District Board for their assistance, for their donation in the tree and their help planting it. And also to our DPW crew and Kevin Hajos and Frank Morehouse for all they did to help us make that happen on relatively short notice. It's a great ceremony and we appreciated everybody's help on that. The public reopening of our offices was this Monday, the 12th. Everything has gone really well. There are some exceptions, most notably is down in the county clerk's office. The DMV is still on appointment-only basis by executive order of the governor. Just to fill in some details there, you can get an appointment between 8:15 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. And if you want to schedule it online, you go to warrencountydmv.setmore.com. Over on the county clerk's side, the county clerk's office is open for public office hours between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Not every service needs an appointment. You can just go in and check in at the clerk's front counter. Let me briefly go through some of these services. For recordings and filings, they're accepting walk-ups Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Passport services is only Tuesday and Thursday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Those services include acceptance of new applications and photos for new and renewal applications. And the clerk does want the public to understand that the U.S. Department of State is still on a significant delay. So for routine service, you're talking 10 to 12 weeks. If you need a passport action before then, you can pay $60 additional for expedited service, and that'll get your service done between 4 and 6 weeks. The records room is back open due to social distancing. It's 4 people at a time, and it's available from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. What they're trying to do is assign hourly blocks so that you don't have someone taking up one of those 4 slots for hours on end, so that we can be fair and rotate people in and out of it. And for pistol permits, application packets, you can come to the counter and pick those up. For amendments, the clerk at this time is asking for members of the public to continue with the drop box or mail, and the same for application submissions. Drop your application submissions in the drop box, and the staff will pick it up and get into it. If you have approval letters, you can still set up appointments for those Monday and Wednesday from 9 to 3 to get your approval letter processes done. We've posted all of this online, and if you have any questions, please get in touch with the county clerk or the county clerk's office. Just on a couple of scheduling pieces, things that were notable actions that we wanted to highlight. On Friday, April 2nd, as many of you know, Senate Majority Leader Schumer was here. He came to the Charles R. Wood Theater to discuss his work on the stimulus bill. If I've heard it once from NACO, I've heard it 100 times that the past 4.5 years, the federal government in Washington has been a whole lot better at understanding what counties need and being responsive to the needs of county governments. And Senator Schumer has certainly taken up that mantle since he assumed leadership of the United States Senate. He's in tune with what we need, and he's working hard to try to make sure that responsiveness at the federal level continues. So we appreciate that. On Wednesday, the 7th, we had our workshop. I want to thank Chris Rogers and Elizabeth Butler for their expertise that they lent to that workshop. It was a very interesting discussion on Robert's Rules and Procedures. On Thursday, April 8th, I participated in interviews for the Tourism Development and Event Coordinator position. That recruitment is going really well, and we'll have some updates from the Tourism Director on that recruitment probably early next week. Yesterday, Thursday the 15th, we sat down again to get back going with CSEA. If you recall, it feels like a lifetime ago, but we had a deal set that the Board of Supervisors approved with CSEA at the beginning of 2020. The membership they voted that contract down, and then COVID hit, and we kind of went on break because we didn't know what the financial implications would be. But CSEA has asked that we initiate those conversations again, and we started that process yesterday. So we're optimistic that we'll get to a contract. CSEA's been out of contract since the end of 2019. And I want to end by acknowledging that this is the last board meeting of our county attorney. She's served our county for almost 5 years, I believe, since May of 2016. So I wanted to, Mary, wish you well, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, County Administrator. At this point in time, we'll ask our County Attorney, Mary Cassane, for her report.
Sure. So my report today is short. I've just spent the last month trying to finish up anything that's outstanding to make the transition easier for my office, and working closely with Ryan and Robert so that hopefully you guys can have a smooth transition.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service to our county as well, Mary. Mr. Lehman has notified me that we do have a late public comment regarding the solar public hearing, and without objection, I would just like to ask that member be able to read that into the record. Mr. Lehman?
Sure, will do. This comment is from a person identifying himself as Richard Saunders, MD. I am a pilot and I keep my airplane at KGFL. I support the idea of leasing land for solar generation at the airport, but I also recognize some safety issues. The area south of the departure end of runway 19 is a crucial safety zone. In the event of an engine failure on takeoff, only runway 19 has a safe place to land straight ahead. Runways 1, 12, and 30 all are obstructed at their departure ends. Most engine failures in general aviation airplanes occur on takeoff, so this is not a hypothetical issue. If we could leave a strip of land open to the top of the hill south of the runway for the greatest distance possible, it would significantly enhance safety for departing as well as arriving traffic. Ideally, that strip of land would be 150 feet wide, the width of the runway. The lighting system, MALSR, for 19 extends 2,000 feet south of 19. Ideally, there would be at least another 2,000 feet beyond that for emergency use. Thanks, Rich Saunders. That's it.
Thank you. Could we have the reading of communications, please?
Sure, we have the Lake George Park Commission's Regulatory Permit Program 2020 Annual Report. Annual Report from the Warren County Clerk's Office for the year 2020. Warren County Probation Department's reports of criminal and family workloads for the months of January and February 2021. Letter from Southern Adirondack Realtors requesting a proclamation declaring April as Fair Housing Month. Email from Mr. Star Valentino requesting a proclamation declaring May 16th as Do Something Good for Your Neighbor Day. We have payments from Capital District Regional Off-Track Betting Corp. The February 2021 surcharge payment in the amount of $2,013, and then the 2020 regional benefit distribution installments number 6 and 7, each in the amount of $2,408. And Fulton County Board of Supervisors Resolution Number 73 of 2021 entitled Resolution Calling upon New York State Legislatures to curtail Governor Andrew Cuomo's emergency power authority.
Thank you. Could we have the reading of resolutions, please?
Sure. Resolution numbers 112 through 155 were distributed to the board and posted to the Warren County website on Friday, April 9th, which met the distribution deadline specified in the rules of the board.
Thank you. At this point in time, I would like to open it up to our board for discussion on proposed resolutions today. Supervisor Wild.
Madam Chair, 112, thank you very much. This is making supplemental appropriations. The last line on there is a contingent, movement of funds from the contingent account to the legislative board for $10,000, and I apologize, I did not catch this when it happened, but I'm wondering if I could get an explanation of what the legislative board needs $10,000 for.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild.
That's
That's fine. Ms. Allen?
That's the contingent transfer that transfers the board's contribution for the bike share program. So that's the $10,000 that we won't need I don't believe we're going to need the full 10,000. It'll be a lesser amount, but that was what it was authorized for.
Thank you, I understand now. Madam Chair, if I may continue.
Certainly.
It's related to that resolution. Resolution 152 is the resolution for the bike share program. There was an economic task force meeting yesterday. Liza Oxendorf, our leader for this program, has explained that actually CDP, or this Capital District Transportation Group that we're aligning with, is looking at this program as a model moving forward for the rest of their region, because typically what they have is it's all community funded, publicly funded from the local governments, and this is a model they look to move forward with. And actually, it looks like our obligation right now is $7,000. It's probably going to be much less than that. So I just wanted to make sure that we understood that this is a great program. It's getting some recognition regionally also. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. Before I move on to another resolution, are there any questions regarding either, or any further discussion on Resolution 112 or the corresponding Resolution 152? Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just wanted to chime in that I think this is great, too. I know that we had some concerns from the local business about competing, and my thought on that is that this is really more for transportation for our local residents versus, you know, the tourism industry. Yeah, maybe some tourists will use this, but for Glens Falls, I think it'll be really helpful for people to be able to get around the city on a bike, and to have it available to them, not necessarily just for recreation. So I'm happy to support this, and I'm glad that it's going to cost us less than $10,000. So thank you for that update, Supervisor Wild, as I wasn't able to attend that meeting yesterday.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. Are there any other comments regarding those two resolutions? Supervisor Straub.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just a note. Resolution number 114, which is accepting the proposal and authorization of land lease with Nexamp Solar. That I think it's inferred or implied that the LOI, or the letter of intent, is also being approved by this board going forward, because Nexamp does need an LOI, or a letter of intent, to move forward. So I didn't see the wording in this, and this is kind of an afterthought on my behalf, I'm sorry. But I think, just a note, that I think it's inferred here that the letter of intent is being approved by this board as we move forward. But I wanted to ask just to be sure.
Would you like to, at this point in time, I'll ask our Superintendent Hajos to address that.
Yes, for us to move forward with Nexamp, they're going to need either a letter of intent or something in writing from the county stating that they can move forward with the interconnection agreement with National Grid, because National Grid won't give them a sign-off until they receive something from the county. So I'm not sure if you want to amend the resolution to add that in, but I would say, as Supervisor Stroud said, a letter of intent would work.
Supervisor McGowan, is that something that you would like amended on the resolution to include?
Well, I was going to ask, do we need a resolution or a resolution amendment? Yes, we do. I would, I know we talked about it at the committee meetings, and I just thought it was, automatically implied. So I want to thank Supervisor Stroud for bringing that up, and the afterthought was a phenomenal one. Yes, I would like to amend that to make sure that wording is in there and get that letter out as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Supervisor McGowan. At this point, I'd like our county attorney to weigh in on this, please.
Sure. As soon as this resolution is passed, Julie will send them a letter accepting their bid. So I'm assuming they can use that letter to send to NYSEG or, who are they working with up here? I'm sorry.
It would be for...
National Grid.
For National Grid.
Yep.
So would you believe that's sufficient?
Yes.
Okay. Is that acceptable to you, Supervisor McGowan?
Well, I just want to make sure that is acceptable to them, so let's make sure we get the letter right the first time, so it doesn't get kicked back, because this is a timely manner.
Okay, Supervisor, or I'm sorry, I've got you, Supervisor, Superintendent Hajos.
I received an email from NextCamp yesterday just for their starting purposes, so if you give me one moment, I'll read kind of what they're looking for.
Madam Chair, while Kevin's looking that up, if you don't mind.
I'd prefer to just wait for, if you don't mind, Supervisor Wild. If it's related to this, I'll come right back to you.
So the email that I received from NextCamp yesterday is, we have started pulling together the interconnection application for National Grid that we will need to submit as soon as possible. To submit this application, we will need the attached form. They have a form that they've sent to me in this email to be signed to allow for NextCamp to submit an application on the county's behalf on airport property. Is this something you could coordinate? So they have sent a form, so if it's agreeable to have you just sign that form.
Would that be agreeable to our county attorney?
The only thing that the resolution allows you to sign is the lease agreement with Nexamp, so I would amend the resolution to also include any other forms that are necessary for the lease agreement.
Okay. Supervisor Wild?
Madam Chair, thank you. That's where I was going.
Thank you. Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, so do I need to recommend another recommendation for the amended of the amended?
I would appreciate a motion to amend Resolution 114 to include the authorization to authorize and sign any other forms, letter of intent, however our clerk would like to read that and make that amendment. Do you have a suggestion on the wording?
I think the way Mary said it was just in any other forms necessary to execute the agreement.
Okay, so any other forms necessary to execute the agreement. At this point in time, let me just see if there's a second, then we'll go to discussion on it, if that's okay.
That's fine, thank you.
So Supervisor McGowan has made that motion. Could I have a second for it?
John Stroud, I'll second.
Thank you, Supervisor Stroud. At this point, I'll open it up to discussion. Supervisor Shepler?
This isn't in regards to what we're currently discussing, but I have a concern in regards to what Dr. Saunders brought up. And has that been taken into consideration going forward with the location of the panels and so forth? And would it be acceptable to take this into consideration at this point in time to either relocate or push back the project, the location of the panels?
Supervisor Shepler, if I could just call the vote on the amendment, and then we'll move right on to that, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That motion to amend Resolution 114 carries. And I'm doing it every time. Superintendent Hajos, if you wouldn't mind responding for Supervisor Shepler?
Sure. So as of now, what we received from NextCamp was just a proposal on the two pieces of property, and that's what it is. It's just a depiction of where they think the solar fields may be. We have not finalized. They have to do a design. I mean, for the next 18 months, they'll be doing design permitting as such, and we can include that as part of their design.
I think it's something that's quite crucial, and it's coming from a pilot's point of view, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration.
And just to touch base with everyone, we had a meeting last night with the Pilots Association, and Rich Saunders was there. And they're concerned with, and they said 4,000 feet today, they believed it was 2,000 feet off the end of the runway. It's actually the start of this solar field, as of right now, would be about 3,000 feet away from the edge of the runway.
Are there additional questions regarding this? Thank you, Does that answer your question? Thank you, Supervisor Shepler. Supervisor Beatty?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the FAA has to approve of the final. So the FAA that does this for their livelihood, obviously, I don't believe would allow solar panels to be too close to a runway if they felt there was any safety issue. Is that correct, Evan?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Leggett, did I miss a comment or a question that you had in there?
Oh, I was just mentioning that the placement of solar panels is up well above the airfield, so there's that consideration.
Thank you, Supervisor Leggett. Supervisor Bramer?
Thank you. I agree with Supervisor Shepler that we should take that into consideration, and it sounds like Superintendent has that in his mind, so that's good. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I had asked him about wetlands on the project site, because we know that was a concern with the most recent project there, and he said that also will be taken into consideration during the design phase, so I just wanted to put that on the record too, that that is a consideration being thought about. Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. Are there any other questions regarding to this resolution here today, 114 of 2021? If not, I'll close discussion for that resolution. Are there other items or resolutions that you wish to have discussed today? Okay, hearing none or seeing none on Zoom, at this point in time, I would ask for any public comment from any individuals that are here in person as it relates to resolutions. And so that the public is aware, we are very excited to welcome you back in safely to all of our public meetings. We do have all the protocols in place with 6 feet between all of our chairs and an overflow room in our committee room, which has the YouTube Live also broadcasted into that room in the event as people return. So please feel free to join us and know that we do have that social distancing in effect. At this point in time, I'll also ask if Don Lehman has any public comment. Don wanted to also update on what that is going to look like moving forward as we have reopened. We are still under the executive order from the state, so we are able to vote via Zoom and remotely, as well as continue to have other discussions. But as that executive order lifts, as we've talked about, we'll continue our good practices of Zooming and having YouTube Live, but voting will take place here in our boardroom, as will executive session. So we would encourage our public to join us in person, but any comments, questions, anything that you need from the public, you can still submit those. Don Lehman will make sure that they get to the appropriate department. But I did, because this is new this month, wanted to make sure that there was not any public comment from Mr. Lehman.
We do not have any public comment on resolutions on YouTube or via email at this time. We would also note that for the public who is concerned about potentially coming back to see meetings, there is an overflow room set up in our committee room where the feed can be watched. If for some reason someone comes down and we have a larger crowd in the boardroom than we can accommodate, there is an overflow room where the stream can be watched there for the meetings going forward.
Great, thank you very much. At this point in time, hearing no further discussion, any requests for roll calls today? Anyone in the boardroom or on Zoom? Hearing none. At this point in time, we'll move on to voting for resolutions.
Resolution number 112, making supplemental appropriations. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Weil?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 113, amending Warren County budget for 2021 for various departments within Warren County. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 114, accepting proposal and authorizing land lease with Nexamp Solar for Floyd Bennett Memorial Airport solar and other approved use land lease. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 115, enacting local law number 3 of 2021 entitled dispensing with the requirements under New York State General Municipal Law, Section 352, and authorizing a lease of airport real property. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 140, amending tables of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2021. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 144, authorizing county treasurer to close capital projects. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier? Yes. Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 145, authorizing the annual appropriation of funds from the election equipment reserve to the Board of Elections budget to fund the lease of Dominion voting machines and amending Warren County budget for 2021. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 148, increasing capital project H351 CR 44 over Hudson River Bridge painting project. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 149, establishing a repair reserve fund for the mobile brine unit to finance repairs. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 150, establishing 2021 road fund project and amending Warren County budget for 2021. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 151, authorizing appropriation of funds from the county fund surplus to the Department of Public Works budget and amending Warren County budget. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 153, authorizing appropriation of funds from the Computer Reserve Fund to various departmental budgets and amending Warren County budget. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 154, authorizing appropriation of additional funds from the Environmental Testing Reserve Fund to the Real Property Tax Services budget. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Wild?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Shepler?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Chairwoman Sieber,
Yes.
Resolution passes. A collective vote on the rest.
Thank you.
That's all the roll call.
Okay, great. Thanks. Do I need to do a collective vote?
If you do the collective on all the rest.
May I have a collective vote on all the rest of the resolutions? All in favor?
Aye.
Do I need you to oppose?
You should.
I'm sorry, I missed, would anyone, is anyone opposed to the collective vote? No? Anyone abstaining? That's great. The collective carries. Thank you. I was trying to insert hopefully without objection from anyone, our Public Health Director, Janelle Jones, is here and would very much appreciate an opportunity to give a report to the board and to our community before we open it up for any type of public or privilege of the floor. Is that agreeable with our board?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jones?
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to provide an update with our success of our vaccination campaign to date. Our goal is still to vaccinate 100% of our communities. Our partners to date have been Glens Falls Hospital, Hudson Headwaters, our pharmacies, our skilled nursing facilities, Office of the Aging, other providers, our squads, our EMS squads, the Glens Falls Fire Department, in addition to the New York State site, which we're very happy to host in our county. We vaccinated seniors. Our estimate so far is that we vaccinated 70.9% of our seniors, It's hard to get a feel for how many of those seniors might be in Florida. You know, we don't get the records from Florida, and we don't know how many of our seniors are in Florida, so it's very difficult for us to know exactly how many we have. In speaking with Dee Park through Office of the Aging and in just kind of measuring some of our phone calls and looking at our wait list, we feel that we've adequately served that population. We don't have seniors still looking. I'm sure there still are some out there. We're not going to stop looking for seniors to vaccinate, but I do think we have hit a majority and have kind of saturated that population. In addition, we've done 295 homebound. We offered a clinic at Open Door. We've done 25 vaccinations there. We've offered vaccination to the jail inmates, of which we've done 35. We're still working on that population, and we'll still continue to work with Open Door and any other populations that would like us to work with them. We've also been working very closely with the OPWDD population as well. As far as first doses that Warren counties provide, Ryan does a beautiful job every morning of updating us where we are with our percentage. Currently, we're at 46.1%, where the state average is 39.6%. And those that have completed, we're at 36.1%, where the state's at 26.4%. I'm very proud of those numbers. Our staff have worked very hard in addition to our community partners, such as Hudson Headwaters and the hospital and the other providers that have helped us get to that number. We've been very lucky not to see severe adverse reactions, and I'm happy for that as well. As far as clinics, we've done just over 70. We've done 33 first dose clinics, 33 second dose clinics, and we've done about 5 J&J clinics in addition to clinics for the homebound, clinics for the Open Door, clinics for the jail. Those are kind of all hard to put in that total number just because it's piecemeal and how that happens. So with the pause, I know as of Tuesday, all of you are made aware that J&J had a pause. That's actually good news. It shows that the system works. With the vaccination campaign through the Communicable Disease Control Program, or the Centers of Disease Control Program, anybody that vaccinates or anybody that's vaccinated is part of a VAERS system, which is the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. We're required to provide documentation to people on how to make those reports should adverse events happen. Out of the over 7 million doses that have been given to date, 1.4 million, roughly a little bit over, have been given to females aged 18 to 50. Through that VAERS Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, that's where the 6 incidents have been found that had significant reactions. And the good news about the whole VAERS system is it allows the ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Infection Control Practices or Immunization Practices, to step back and say, let's investigate this, let's see if we should go forward, let's see if we need to change the recommendations, let's see if we need to pause, let's see if we need to abort it altogether, or whatever. So the system did work. We did have the reactions that were found. The reaction that was found is called cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, or CVST. That was reported. That's basically presence of blood clots that are in the dural venous sinuses or the cerebral veins, or both. Basically a blood clotting disorder. J&J has been used since March. I attended a CDC briefing yesterday that discussed those 6 cases. You probably know most of what I heard because the news has already put a lot of that out there. But we are seeing this mainly happen in women. We're seeing it happen in people aged 18 to 48, and most within 6 to 13 days of their vaccination. To date, 42% of the Janssen doses were administered in that window of the 6 to 13 days has already passed. But that tells us that 58% of the people are still in that window, so there's still the opportunity to maybe see more incidents happen, so this pause is important for them to monitor for additional symptoms. With that said, we're encouraging any of the public, and this is more directed at the public at this point too, anybody that has received a J&J vaccine within 3 weeks that experiences severe headaches, abdominal pain, leg pain, shortness of breath, should reach out to their provider so that they can maybe be monitored, tested, or assessed to determine if they may be having that reaction. In addition, I want to provide the information on the vaccine adverse reporting system. It's V as in Victor, A, E, R, S as in Sam, dot H, S as in Sam, dot gov. The phone number that people can call for questions is 1-800-822-7967. In addition, information can be found at info@vaers.org, and that VAERS is VAERS. So anyone with symptoms, I mean, we don't anticipate that we'll see them, but anybody with symptoms certainly can call. The pause is a good opportunity, as mentioned, for that investigation process and to monitor and surveil for further reports. The ACIP is going to be meeting to make their determination soon. But I would encourage, our goal is still to vaccinate 100% of our community. I love our stickers still. Want to get those stickers out to 100% of our population. Can't wait to start vaccinating our children. But for now, if people were scheduled for clinics for J&J while we're in this pause, if they could maybe seek out Moderna and Pfizer clinics. For the first time this past Wednesday, we had a Moderna clinic that we didn't fill. We had about 50 extra doses. And you know, I know that we still have more people out there to vaccinate, so we have to really get the word out there. We have not seen this reaction or adverse event with the Moderna or the Pfizer, so those are still considered safe to be using, so we are hoping to use those. And just kind of a quick update as well, we've been told that the state's going to be, because of this, diverting all the J&J to the state clinics. So we're being told as counties we should not, or will probably not be getting Pfizer. This week, we did request to go in with a couple other counties in a collaborative effort to ask for a Pfizer tray to help vaccinate our 16, 17, 18-year-old students that are in schools. So we've been working very closely with our schools to do that. We won't know till over the weekend, and actually one of the other counties that we went in with will be getting that notification over the weekend as to whether or not we get the vaccine. I might not know until Monday. And I'm hoping that answer will be yes, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to use that vaccine. If not, you know, we've got Moderna coming instead of our J&J that we ordered, and, you know, that's only for the 18 and olders, but we're still trying to get those 16 and olders vaccinated. This week, we also passed out links to our schools. Albany and Schenectady had Pfizer doses that we were able to hopefully get some of our students down to get vaccinated, but that's our focus right now, is trying to get our students vaccinated, because those are the active kids in schools that are going to sports and everything else. And just another quick reminder, we are seeing an uptick in cases again, and you know, I know it has a lot to do with maybe activities that were done over the spring break and travel. We're seeing family members getting it, we're seeing it go through families. I just am encouraging people to remain vigilant with the mask and the social distancing, whether or not you're vaccinated. We received 2 reports today of cases that were vaccinated fully that received or did get diagnosed with COVID. I think that brings our total to 8 at this point in time. All 3 vaccines, we've seen it with all 3. The good news is very minor illness. And the other good news is no hospitalizations with regard to people that have been vaccinated that have gotten COVID. But just because you are vaccinated does not mean that you can't get COVID or spread it. So it's still important to take those precautions. With that, if anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Jones?
Being at the end, warn you all out. Well, I hope everybody has a nice weekend. I thank you all for your support, and I do want to just bring light to the fact with the memorial dedication of the tree in honor of those that have passed. I appreciate that gift to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again for all your hard work. At this point in time, do we have privilege of the floor? Supervisor McDevitt.
Yes, very, very briefly. It's the day is getting long. On Wednesday, the New York Times and the Washington Post and many publications throughout the country put a couple of pages together and entitled "We Stand for Democracy," and I think the basic stand that major employers, major decision makers, from the perspective of American Airlines, Goldman Sachs, General Motors, Ford, Blackstone, New York Presbyterian, major law firms in this country. And the point I think that these publications and major employers are attempting to stress is that we stand for democracy. Voting cannot be made political. And just let me quickly paraphrase what the New York Times indicated last Wednesday. A beautiful American ideal, but a reality denied to many for much of this nation's history. As Americans, we know that in our democracy, we should not expect to agree on everything. However, regardless of our political affiliations, we believe the very foundation of our electoral process rests upon the ability of each of us to cast our ballots for the candidates of our choice. For American democracy to work for any of us, we must ensure the right to vote for all of us. We should feel a responsibility to defend the right to vote and to oppose any discriminatory legislation or measures that restrict or prevent any eligible voter from having an equal and fair opportunity to cast a ballot. Voting is the lifeblood of our democracy, and we should call upon all Americans to join us in taking a nonpartisan stand for this, the most basic and fundamental right of all Americans. We had a proclamation approved today in terms of National Law Day, and basically the words that you see in this proclamation really square up fundamentally in terms of what major decision makers and major employers are standing for. We cannot politicize the political process. And that, I think, is the net of what they're saying. We do indeed stand for democracy in this country. We stand for the rule of law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor McDevitt. I just want the record to reflect that Supervisor Hogan has joined us, and to also give her an opportunity if there's anything that you wanted to add as well. Supervisor Hogan, I know you had a commitment earlier today.
Thank you. It's nice to see everybody this morning. I'm sorry I missed the bulk of the work. I just wanted to thank Supervisor Frazier for covering for me. And that's it. And I'm sorry I missed the presentations this morning. Those are important. Hope everybody has a good week.
Thanks, Supervisor Hogan. Are there other announcements today? Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. At the request of the chairwoman, recently, I reached out to Kim Cook, the executive director of the Open Door in Glens Falls, regarding the interest of possibly members of the Board of Supervisors and other county officials to tour their new facilities. I think it's important, and Supervisor Wild articulated a recent meeting of the Economic Development Committee regarding focusing on the impact that not-for-profits play in both in the quality of life in our county, but also in the economic value that they bring. Two of our largest employers are, in fact, not-for-profits. So I'm going to be working with the chairwoman and Amanda to try to set up a series of tours of the Open Door in coming weeks or the next month. Maybe a handful of individuals, a series depending on how much interest is available. We'll try to schedule it when our North Country members are in the area. And that's essentially my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll, and for going above and beyond to make sure that we recognize those different individuals and entities and provide that opportunity for tours for our committee chairs and our members. Thank you. Any other announcements this morning? Supervisor Conover.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just that on April 24th, Warren County will be conducting its disposal program for household hazardous waste. It's not a program that gets a lot of fanfare, and quite frankly, it's a critically important program. It keeps a lot of bad things out of the environment and out of our water. with the proper disposal. And if you would indulge me just for a second, if we could use this as an opportunity for Kevin Ajos, just to very quickly give the P's and Q's on where and when relative to what people need to know for the program. We have it posted at our clerk's office. We also have it posted at our transfer station, and I certainly would encourage all of the towns that if they have not done so, please do that. It would help inform the public. So thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Hajos.
Sure. So as Supervisor Conover said, we have our household hazardous waste collection. We actually have 2 dates. The first one is next Saturday, April 24th, which is from 9 to 2 at the Queensbury Highway Garage. And then the following one will be Saturday, July 24th from 9 to 2 at the Warren County DPW up in Warrensburg. You can go to the Warren County website. You can find the Household Hazardous Waste Day registration form on there. You will see the items that you are allowed to bring. And I'm not really necessarily going to go through them, but I will talk on some of the things that we will not take. We will not take any explosive waste or munitions. Anything to do with asbestos, we will not take. Latex paint. A lot of people want to bring latex paint. If you can, maybe offer it to school or volunteer organizations that maybe they can use it to paint. If not, I would say pour it out on a piece of cardboard or plywood outside, let it dry, and then throw it away into a transfer station. Automotive oil, batteries, electronics. Electronics can be collected at the transfer stations right now. And any infectious waste, or not that anybody has any radioactive material, but we will not accept that at these events. They fill up fairly quick. I'm hoping to have a big turnout this year. We have quite a few registrations as it is right now, so please go to the website and sign up for it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there other announcements this morning? Supervisor Stroud.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and fellow board supervisors. I have 2 suggestions for your consideration. In regards to addressing and mooting the current Article 78 proceeding that claims that certain positions and offices be vacated because of a lack of legally filed filings or legally required filings, one way of doing this is declaring these positions vacant, hold a renomination and re-vote, and that would make that whole Article 78 moot, and I would favor that option. All right, that's one suggestion. My second and last suggestion is that we have several issues that appear to be before the board. We've discussed them at length, and I feel that those issues need to be addressed, and I'm offering us a way that they can be addressed. We reactivate the Legislative and Rules Committee, and we can, as a board, adopt this committee and create it without the politicization that we've seen. This committee can be created and approved by the board, and here might be some of the issues that this committee can help solve. Future Board of Supervisors Committee formations should be and can be developed with the advice and consent of the board. I suggest that moving forward, we look at that. Another item that I think needs to be addressed. Committee chair assignments are doled out. They need to be doled out evenly and fairly. All right, no supervisor should receive multiple chairs and others receive none. Let's eliminate the politicization of these committees, please. And I think that this Legislative and Rules Committee could look at that. Another issue, and with the advice and consent of the Board of Supervisors, we take a look at the Board of Supervisors meeting rules and develop and offer them to the board. As a committee, we would negotiate that and then offer to the board what we think are fair rules for the Board of Supervisors and the committee chairs and so forth moving forward. Another item this Legislative and Rules Committee could look at is what could the county do to become more open and transparent, especially with FOILs. And that this committee could look at the need for the positions of majority and minority and we would take an independent and objective assessment of that. This committee could take a look at the emails, for example. Are all emails that are coming from our legal department being shared with all board members, especially with items and legal opinions that refer to Board of Supervisor activities and issues? Another thing we could look at is making this Legislative and Rules Committee permanent. The thing that is very important to me, and maybe perhaps not so many others, is the need for a new agenda line item. As opposed to a privilege, county supervisors should have their own line item to be able to discuss issues they think and thoughts they think are important. Not a privilege, a right. And lastly, and not lastly, because there's other things that perhaps this committee could look at, is a clarification of the roles and duties of the Board of Supervisors chair. So these are my suggestions for Board of Supervisor consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Stroud. That's a lot of items all at once to talk about under announcements, but I certainly welcome that opportunity. I've had a couple supervisors that have questions, but before those questions, I'd like to break these items up so that we can address them appropriately, Supervisor Stroud. I think the most common theme that I heard in your suggestions today have been suggestions that ironically you and I are on the same page with. One of those being our Government Operations and Advocacy Committee. Legislative and Rules met twice last year, and I believe once the year before, at the request of our supervisors when we were soliciting feedback from everyone that we had called and spoken to, which was, yeah, again, we made calls to every single member on this board. One of the suggestions was to decrease the number of supervisors on our committees for more efficiency and decrease the number of committees. And I believe that there were many valid points to that. So we looked at committees that had not historically met. Shared Services was one of them that came out of mandated, unmandated issues from years ago. Mark Westcott actually had started that up at the time he was on the board. So that was one committee that we decided to merge. There were other committees that we also looked at. And specifically to your point about legislative and rules, we did merge as discussed on January 15th here at this board meeting and individually in conversations prior to the fact that that advocacy piece that's so important would now be under government operations. In fact, our coming weeks, we have multiple advocacy efforts, including the broadband resolutions and other resolutions that are important for advocacy to our state and local and federal partners. So I appreciate that opportunity to have a very active committee under that with Supervisor Beatty. So I think many of your suggestions as it relates to majority, minority, as it relates to some of your other questions about the Board of Supervisors and our meeting rules and develop and offer different alternatives was one that was clearly stated on both January 8th and January 15th and asked the board to provide at least 3 months to see how these new committees would work or these existing ones with smaller members. And then, of course, Supervisor Beatty did make that a priority of his government operations to be able to have in-depth discussions after we were trained both in parliamentary procedures for Robert's Rules and from our workshops from our county attorney and our county clerk of the board. So those things are happening, and I hope that you're excited about that as well, and we'll bring to the table many different suggestions so we can look at that and hopefully pass a really well-educated and informed rules of the board for next year. So that addresses those additional questions from my perspective. However, I know there are additional questions. In addition to that, though, I do want to make note of the fact that when we talk about the responsibility as chair, and having been on this board since 2014, I often heard Supervisor Conover refer to Local Law Number 1 of 1968. And of course, this is what established the authority of the chair of the board at that time. And if you look through that local law, you'll see, you know, probably 3 different pages of responsibilities and authorizations that fall underneath the chair of the board. But that's not all we go under when we look at the responsibilities of the chair of the board. We also look at the county law and state law, and there as well are specific duties that fall to your chair of the board. So Supervisor Stroud, without running, unless, of course, you intend to run for state office, you could certainly advocate at that point in time for changes to the state law. But here at our board, we should all be invested in advocating for changes to our rules of the board, and certainly could look at discussions to modifying a local law that is in fact still in effect and is incredibly detailed on what the duties and responsibilities of chair are. Notwithstanding that, I also believe that there has been multiple discussions regarding, your list was long, I tried to write them all down as you went, but I do believe, just at face value, that offers a quick update on all of that, not to mention that our supervisor, our minority leader, Supervisor Bramer, who's also chair of our personnel committee, does on a regular basis talk about pending lawsuits. That is our custom, unless it's something that, of course, like our most recent discussions about significant impact to our community and our county. We have had many, many discussions recently about a pending lawsuit that required special meetings and meetings of our entire board. But we have been very appreciative of Attorney Cassane's efforts in coming every month through our executive session in personnel to update this entire board to those that wish to attend outside of the personnel meeting to have those updates. And they are very important. She also sends out a list of that as well. But of course, important to your discussion is our most recent lawsuit, and I would certainly ask that if there was anything additional that our county administrator, who works day in and day out addressing many of these concerns, and perhaps you've already voiced those concerns to him, but I am sure he would appreciate the opportunity to address them before I move to Supervisor Bramer for her question and Supervisor Hogan for her question, and any other questions, comments, or concerns that this board would have.
Yeah, well, thank you, Madam Chair. In closing, I would just like to say I wanted an independent and objective review of these. Thank you. And I will send this out to the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
That Tammy, thank you very much. At this point in time, we all have one opportunity to speak. One moment, please.
No, I'm sorry. Point of order needs to be addressed right away by Robert's rules, is it not?
Excuse me, Supervisor Wild, our rules under the board for these board meetings is that under our rules that were adopted on January 15th, every member has one opportunity to speak. It is more restrictive than our Roberts rules during the training that we have. If you
Can anybody else not hear the chairwoman?
I can't hear anything.
No. Everything's muted. You have one opportunity to speak until everyone else speaks.
So no point of order?
Chairwoman, we can't hear you.
Hold on one second.
At all.
I guess I have to get my book out again.
Please do.
I thought point of order was a point that anyone could question a decision by the chair.
It's not an automatic to interrupt at the time that I'm speaking regarding moving on to County Administrator Moore to reply.
Is that in Robert's rules?
Supervisor Wild,
I'm next.
you are more than welcome to speak after Supervisor Bramer, Supervisor Hogan, and then, of course, you're welcome to speak. But County Administrator Moore was asked to weigh in, please.
Sure. I'll update on the Article 78 proceeding, which was brought up at the beginning of those comments. We filed, we being our attorney, Mr. Koss from Barclay Damon, who was appointed by the insurance company, filed and served a motion to dismiss the petition on Monday, April 12th, for lack of standing, as well as a failure to state a claim for mandamus. And the return date for that proceeding is April 19th, and the court has indicated that it will be on submission. So our attorneys will advise us of any opposition papers from the individual who brought the Article 78. And in the meantime, my advice would be we have a solid strategy, and let's see how it turns out in court.
Thank you, Administrator Moore. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Also, thank you for addressing and discussing the changes that were made to past protocol and ideas going forward, as well as relating to improvements to the County Board of Supervisors processes in the future. As we all know, this has been something that's been important to you for a long time, and we are now making changes, and we'll be bringing some other changes, as we discussed, for instance, the ethics policy going through the Personnel Committee. What I would like to say in response to some of the earlier comments is that Supervisor Stroud and Supervisor McDevitt, your attacks on the chairwoman and myself as minority leader are really getting old. You had a choice, and you voted for your choice. You did not come to the Democratic caucus, and you have made no calls to me in the last 3 months. You are making Democrats look bad with your sour grapes attitude and attacking fellow Democrats. Democrats have lost in the past when we have put up people for the chairmanship seat. You know that, Supervisor McDevitt and myself, we both ran. And after we lost, we did not continue to complain and attack the person who became the chair. We got to work and we served our residents of the county and the constituents, and I would ask that you two do that at this point. Supervisor Stroud, having your wife foil for mine and Supervisor Hogan's financial disclosures is ridiculous, and it's, I believe, inappropriate use of foil to attack fellow supervisors. I have not sought your financial disclosures, and doing so, I would not do that, and I never did anything to you or your wife. As far as I can tell, your behavior seems very misogynistic. You are going after a chairwoman, you are going after me, you are going after Supervisor Hogan, just like you did not support Catherine Atherton, Jennifer Switzer, and Amanda McGee when they were on your town board. This discussion is not helping our residents, and we need it to stop. If you have real ideas, you should bring them to committee like the rest of us do, and get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I want to echo Supervisor Bramer's frustration with the waste of energy that we're going through here and these repeated attacks, not only on the chairwoman, but on the women on the Board of Supervisors. I'm going to call it what it is, as did Supervisor Bramer. It's misogyny. I'd like to know, where was the chair of Legislative and Rules in 2019 when the initial proposal for committee chairs left 3 of the 4 women on the board without chairmanships? That was rectified. Thank you, Supervisor Conover. But I'd also like to know, where was the chair of Legislative and Rules in 2020 when, again, 2 of the 5 then sitting women were not placed in chairmanship positions? This has got to stop. We need to move forward. We need to focus on what's productive and get the work of the day done. Please, just stop with this.
Thank you, Supervisor Hogan. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I mentioned about the point of order, I will do some more reading, but what concerns me now is the current tone of the discussion. The fact that the attacks are against women. I don't believe that that's the case. I've never seen that on this board. It's easy to say, very difficult to prove, but it's all about impressions. And when you say something like that, it's a strong statement. It's a really strong statement. And to my view, it's a weak statement because you can't respond to the issues. You'll change the topic. So, in my career, and I bet in many others, we've all had to work with women. Can't work with women, you're probably not going to maintain that job. So let's move on from this. Let's treat each other as individuals. I don't care about the party you're in. I don't care about your gender. I care about the value that we add as a group and individually to the county. It is not that we represent our gender. It's not that we represent our party. It's not that we represent our individual towns. We're here to do the county's business. And everyone should have an opportunity to a voice about what we need to do to make the county as strong as we can. We've had some great moves. There's some issues now. We need to resolve those with open discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. To respond to your comment, you're absolutely right. We should have every opportunity to speak to each other respectfully. We should absolutely respect each other's differences and play on each other's strengths and weaknesses. This should be a united board. We are a board from committee. I would appreciate any of your suggestions to go through the appropriate committee, and every other chair before me has been given an opportunity to put together a team, to put together, Supervisor Wild, do you mind, I know you're getting ready to walk up and leave, but I would like to respond to your comments. I want to let you know, as it relates to calling on a point of order, when a member has been assigned the floor and has begun to speak, unless he or she begins to discuss a subject when no motion is pending, or speaks longer in debate than the rules that the Assembly allows, he or she cannot be interrupted by another member or by the chair except for the following purposes, and only when the urgency of the situation justifies it. And if you move on to Section C of 4.16.2021 of Robert's Rules, you will also see that the chair of the board, at this point in time, based on the training that we have been provided, and until such time that our experts came and spoke with us at our workshop, the chair, according to our county attorney, was a parliamentarian. At that point in time, through our training from experts, we were told that that, in fact, was not the best course of action, and we've prepared a resolution in advocacy and efforts to go through government ops for this month to request appointing the clerk of the board, who was suggested to be the parliamentarian. At that point in time, the clerk of the board can be asked to give a ruling that would advise the chair in making the official enforcement of that request. That is how the parliamentarian should work. So we look forward to that discussion as it comes to government ops, and I certainly hope you can make an opportunity to attend that meeting. I appreciate your comments. At this point in time, are there other comments before us in the boardroom today?
Madam Chair, may I respond?
You may respond after everyone else has had a chance to ask questions, and then we will abide by the rules of our board, which is one opportunity, and I am happy to afford a second at the time everyone else is done. Are there other comments from members of the board today? Supervisor, I see him, Supervisor Garrity, thank you. Supervisor McDevitt.
Yes, Supervisor Bramer, the suggestion that I have personally attacked anyone, I don't know where you get that from. I'm flabbergasted at that observation. Do I object to the so-called majority and minority form of government? Absolutely, unequivocally. I object that we are paying two supervisors $6,000 each in an age of COVID, where people can't afford food, where we have two supervisors in this body, one a Democrat, one a Republican, taking $6,000 of hard-earned taxpayers' money and just think it's fine, that it's just another day at the park. There's something fundamentally wrong with that, and this will continue to fester with this board until we, believe it or not, have an opportunity to actually vote. Are we going to vote on this form of government? We can't waive the rules. We get into an issue of whether we want to waive the rules. We get it tied up in committee, whether it's approved in committee. We need, as a legislative body, to vote at our next meeting on whether we want to assume and accept our so-called majority and minority leader. I object to it, and I also object again to Ms. Bramer and her characterization of a personal attack. Thank you.
Thank you. Your objections have been noted. We have voted on this issue. We voted twice on January 15th. To further address your concerns, you are more than welcome to bring them up through the appropriate committee if you're so desire to continue to talk about a topic that we have talked about at committee meetings and now 95 days since chair. So to be clear, we were not going to continue to violate the law with paying for a finance chair, period. We followed the county law. The county law allows us to have a majority, minority, and chair and budget officer. We have been over this. On top of that, we also reduced the overall compensation salary. So thank you for your comments. I would now like to see if there's anyone else who's not spoken that has comments. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. you know, I have to say that Claudia, Supervisor Bramer, and Supervisor Hogan, I fully agree with you. And, you know, maybe the implication hasn't been spoken, but I'll tell you right now, on this board, there's a few that it sure has been felt. Okay? And I kind of said it before, it's becoming annoying, and I was kind of picked on the word that I said annoying, but I was trying to be simple and not, isolate and point the finger. Okay? We have a good board here, and I enjoy working with all of you, but I see this decisiveness between us is kind of separated some of us, and the trust is being lost, and that's what bothers me the most. Now, I believe our chairwoman is doing one phenomenal job, and I have followed her, I've stood next to her, I've even campaigned with her, and I believe in her. But I was at the tree planting, all right, with a group of you, and I have to say that I was proud to stand behind her and listen to what she said, because she involved everybody. And the main thing that if anybody got out of that was, the loss of our people, which was a shame, but it was the unity that it was to bring, okay? Over the $6,000, all right, that we could feed our hungry people, that money was being spent before, all right? We, in return, or our chairwoman, in return, actually ended up saving the county $3,000 in the way they were dispersed and knocking down the salaries. So, to sit there and say that this is costing the county money, we were paying the finance chair and the budget, and that's why I said before, this is nothing but words, all right? They're just two words, minority, majority. Just because it didn't happen the way that you all wanted it, some of you wanted it to happen, if it was right or wrong, I really think it's working. I have become very close with our minority leader in talking and discussing. I find the openness, all right? And I really like it, and I agree with both the supervisor women and our church. It's time for this to end, and we need to move on and unite and be mature adults here and do what we're elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan. Are there other comments on this issue?
Yes.
Once again, I would very much like to give opportunities to people who have not been heard and follow our rules of the board. Supervisor Beatty. Supervisor Leggett right after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think Supervisor Bramer and Hogan were 100% spot on. I've never seen such attacks on females before. It's disgusting. It should be below them, but it doesn't seem to be. And so I fully support, and I also can sense and see where they are coming from. They are well-spoken, they are spot on. For Supervisor McDevitt, he fails to mention that 9% reduction in the amount of compensation. Fails to mention that. That's a huge thing. It has never been done up here to reduce that 9%. So so when you try to do misinformation and song and dance and stuff, it eventually comes to haunt you. So, Mr. McDevitt, in all due respect, give the whole story, not just a little snippet. And finally, the fact that we're trying, this board is trying to do the best it can, yet certain supervisors continually try to waste the county time, resources, and energy on juvenile issues is beyond comprehension to me. Time to grow up, lead by example, and be part of a good and great and growing county instead of trying to tear down individuals and committees. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Supervisor Beatty. Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Madam Chairwoman, you have a big heart and you've always stood for transparency and open dialogue. And as we come to the privilege of the floor at the end of a meeting, perhaps it is a better forum for people to make statements and perhaps not respond to those statements, just let them lie there. Perhaps there is another area where a response could be more effective. Just a recommendation.
I appreciate your recommendation. I have a personal commitment to answer questions from the public when they ask them, and during privilege of the floor as well. If I can answer them, I'm certainly going to try. And as chair of the board, I still have that opportunity and that right, not just to represent our board here, but the constituents that have elected me to office. I don't give away that right from becoming chair. I do, however, agree and think that you have an excellent suggestion with perhaps there is a better forum. And I hope that a lot of these questions and concerns from members of our own board could funnel through the appropriate committees to continue to have that positive dialogue. And I really do appreciate your comments, Supervisor Leggett. Are there any other supervisors that would like to be heard?
Yes, please.
Excuse me, are there any that have not spoken that would like to be heard? At this point in time, our rules of the board allow one opportunity for people to be heard. We do not have an automatic right to go to a second one. In light of the comments that Supervisor Leggett made, I would like to ask for a vote. If you, at this hour at 12:30, would like to continue to talk about items that have not been have been discussed in our committee reports, but you would certainly like to continue to have this dialogue, I would like that to be a vote of the board at this point in time, since it does not adhere to our rules of the board. Ms. Allen, I would ask you to make a roll call for those of you that wish to continue discussion under privilege of the floor to a second round.
Ms. Smith?
I don't want to vote on that. One thing I do want to say, I came from a major corporation, and I have never seen such a lack of professionalism in my life. We all have skills, we all have talents, and I think that we need to recognize that each of us are different and each of us have those talents. I agree with Craig Leggett that I think sometimes, Rachel, you want to talk a lot and not let people just say something, get it out there, and then just be quiet, sit back, digest what's been said before you jump on. And I hate to say the word jump on it, but, and I know I can be the same way. I mean, I have situations right here and over the years working with big groups, you get frustrated with somebody and you want to wring their neck. I mean, I know, but you know, we have to sit back and think about how professional can we be. And I don't think that the majority of this group is professional. And I was disappointed from the day I came in. I was disappointed before that. Some of the phone calls I got to say, I was so pleased. And they were very helpful to me, and I could name the names. And then I got a couple phone calls that were so disappointing. The phone calls that I respected were the calls that said, you know, you're going to have to make your own decisions and you have to listen closely to make those decisions. The ones that kind of started poking at all the things that went on, I needed to learn that myself, but poking at all the things that were going on really disappointed me. I thought, you know, I do have a brain. I'm not, maybe I'm not super intelligent. Maybe I'm not as, you know, I don't know the political side of things the way all of you guys do. You've been around a whole lot longer than I have. But I got to tell you, all I can say is we need to work as a team. We need to grow up. And we need to respect each other's skills and talents. And that's all I have to say. So you go where you want to go.
Ms. Hogan?
No.
Mr. Dickinson? Mr. Merlino?
I'd like to make a quick comment. I'm going to say no, but I'd like to ask the Madam Chair to make an appointment with me. I'd like to speak to her in person. Thank you.
Mr. Stroud?
I had no idea that making some suggestions that would be looked at independently and objectively by an independent and objective group would lead to a discussion such as this. And I agree with Craig Leggett. This should be, the suggestions that I made should be reviewed independently and objectively. I say that because I know what it feels like to not belong to the good old persons group. Furthermore, the first time I'm hearing of the FOIL was today. I had no idea of the FOIL. And that's because I don't tell my wife what to do. And they were merely suggestions. And to try and to turn this into some misogyny or male and female, is very disingenuous and patently not of my character either. This just has to do with some of the issues that I brought up. I did not mention any names. I did not mention anything. All I said is, here are some suggestions. Don't they merit review and looking at? That's all I said. And that's all I needed to say. I will send them out in an email. But I have to agree with Craig Leggett. This is not the forum for the discussion. All I did was make some suggestions. Thank you.
Mr. Shaw, are you voting in favor of continued discussion or against?
I just had my discussion.
Okay, so I'll put you down as not voting. Mr. Wild?
It seems as though we're bending the rules, so we're allowing everyone to comment. And I'm going to take just a moment.
Well, I haven't called a point of order in light of Supervisor Smith's comments and suggestions, so I would very much like to remind people this is a vote, but I am trying very hard to listen to all of your concerns outside of the parameters of our rules and our Roberts rules as a matter of courtesy. So that is why.
I'm not sure what that means.
It means if you would like to talk for the rest of the day and tell us your concerns, please, Supervisor Wild, you have the floor.
I would not do that to my peers on this board or those that might be listening. There are issues that need to be addressed. Supervisor Leggett, thank you for bringing it to the point that we should be discussing this elsewhere. It's important for us not to limit debate, and there's a time and appropriateness for all of it. There are issues at this board that need to be resolved, and we should be able to handle those. So I'm going to say no, and let's move it on to whatever committee we need to, or new committee we need to make these things get resolved. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. McGowan?
No.
Mr. Beatty?
No.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Ms. Shepler?
No.
Mr. Garrity?
Well, I believe in the rules, so I'll say no, and I'll keep my mouth shut.
Mr. Conover?
No.
Mr. Leggett?
Yes.
Mr. Diamond?
No.
Mr. McDevitt?
Legislative bodies cannot and should not limit debate, so I don't know if that's a yes or a no.
Yes.
We cannot limit debate.
Okay. Ms. Bramer?
I'll agree with my colleague Supervisor McDevitt and vote yes.
Mr. Bruno?
No.
Mr. Driscoll?
No, but if I could request the opportunity to comment on another unrelated issue before we adjourn, I would appreciate that opportunity.
Mrs. Frazier?
No, I'd just like to say one quick thing. I'm just very disappointed in the direction that I see this Board of Supervisors going. And I do believe we need to take a good hard look at ourselves and sit down and decide, are we going on the right path, or do we need to do a little bit of work so that we get on a better path? Thank you.
Chairwoman Sieber?
No.
Okay, there are only 165 votes in favor of continuing discussion.
Thank you. Supervisor Driscoll, you had privilege of the floor for an announcement.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I certainly don't want to minimize the discussions that we've had, but every night before I go to bed, I ask myself, have I made a positive impact in sharing information and sharing my opinion on COVID-19? To me, that's the most paramount, important, vital issue facing this boards throughout New York State and the United States. So I know that we've received some very positive information from Administrator Moore and from Janelle Jones, but the fact that many of us have been received the vaccines and our second vaccine in some cases isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. We still have a responsibility as leaders to set a good example and to wear masks, to social distance, to avoid, whenever possible, large gatherings, and basically to spread the word that there's still a lot that needs to be done. And I don't want to lose sight of the fact, while we deliberate on this particular issue, that we also should be daily, multiple times during the day, keeping COVID-19, because it impacts all areas of our economy, our quality of our lives here in Warren County. And just wanted to say that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I did receive a note from Tom Randall who said that this is one of the best meetings for sound that he has had. He certainly appreciates the opportunity to hear all of this, and we've done so many upgrades to our ability to communicate remotely. And I wanted to thank our IT department and Tammy and Amanda for the hard work that you've done, because it has, in the last 95 days of being here every day, you have been working on this very hard. So thank you. I would also like to say, I too am disappointed. Our privilege of the floor should never be used as an attack. We should be professional and work together representing our communities.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Thomas. That motion is seconded by Supervisor Bramer. All in favor?
Aye.
Does anyone oppose? That's carried. Thank you.